Now, the part of the show where I talk about three things that individual investors should be considering before they make their investment decisions. And here you have the three I want to touch on today. Fed rate decision and commentary. We know the Bank of Canada already cut a quarter point this morning at around quarter to 10 this morning. The Fed will announce their rate decision 2 p.m. this afternoon. Chinese and U.S. talks and geopolitical events. We know that President of China, President Xi, and President Trump will be speaking on Friday. I think a lot of that talk is going to revolve around TikTok. I know that the U.S. is trying to acquire TikTok from the Chinese, including the algorithm that goes along with it, which makes TikTok so enticing. But I think there's a lot more to that. And that's not just a TikTok conversation. I think it's a trade conversation. So we'll talk a bit about that. Has the Mag 7 hit, has the Mag 7 hit 20 trillion in market cap? The answer is yes. Recently, the Magnificent Seven reached 20 trillion in market cap, actually over 20 trillion. What's the significance of that? Well, the US economy is 30 trillion. So 7 companies make up 2/3 of the US economy, bigger than the next largest economy, which is China, in and around 19 trillion. So if those 7 companies, Mag 7, if they were a country, they would be the second largest economy in the world today. What does that mean? We'll talk about that as well. Let's move to the first one that we have, first topic, which is the Fed rate decision at 2 p.m. It is assumed that we're going to get a 25 basis point cut. And I think that's pretty much a given. I think the market could perhaps sell the news, if you will. So they buy the rumors and they sell once it's announced because the market has already factored in that 25 basis point cut. If the Federal Reserve were to reduce rates by 50 basis points, you may or may not obviously get a better reaction from the market. You could get a better reaction because they're cutting interest rates more, or you might get a negative reaction because maybe investors are going to say, well, maybe things are slowing down with respect to jobs and the economy in the US even more so. Maybe those in the government are not telling us just how bad things are moving. So if the Fed cuts 50 basis points, that might be a negative, or maybe not. We'll have to see. All eyes and ears will be on the Fed and their announcement at 2 p.m. this afternoon. So just over, I guess, about an hour and a half's time from now. Our first report, or first chart, I should say, comes. It shows actually the bit of a pickle that the Federal Reserve is in. It shows U.S. Consumer Price Index. There it is. And I say a bit of a pickle because inflation is rising. We're getting data, PCE and now CPI. PPI actually look good, but CPI clearly is showing that inflation is now back in and around 3%. Headline number 2.9. The core rate, which excludes volatile energy and food, it's at 3.1. So inflation, 3%. Keep in mind, Federal Reserve target is 2%, just like here in the Bank of Canada, target is 2%. So if they cut rates today, they're going to be cutting rates with an inflation rate that is well above their target rate. Unlike Canada this morning, that cut interest rates with a target inflation rate of 1.9%, below that 2% level. Next chart here shows the month over month increase, and you can see how much inflation has jumped up. CPI jumped up 0.4%, well above anything that we saw, I guess, dating all the way back to maybe even January. You'd have to see a number that high. So inflation is rising, and some people are saying maybe the Fed shouldn't be cutting interest rates when we have, or when the U.S. has perhaps starting to see a bit of an inflationary issue. But the one thing that the Fed is focused on and why they're going to cut interest rates is because of our next chart, which is the monthly job change. And you're going to see that this past month, 22,000 jobs created, well below what the expectation was, which was somewhere around 75,000. We saw in the month of July, again, 79,000, well below the expectation. And then you had the two big revisions, right? Two big revisions, 19,000 for the month of May, and a negative number for the month of June. So that is what the Fed is focusing on, and the main reason why that you're going to see a 25 basis point cut come 2 p.m., or at least so we believe. Next chart, unemployment rate. That's coming in at 4.3% now. And you can see how much it's gone up just since 2023. Another chart we've seen this before, shows the economy at a glance. And we're seeing now, there it is, 4.25, 4.50. This is where the Fed funds rate is right now. And it is well above, still well above the inflation rate of around 3%. Plenty of room for the Federal Reserve to cut. So keep an eye on what the Fed says at 2 p.m. today, but also keep an eye on the various commentaries that will come out in the days after today. And I think that will give us a pretty good indication as to where things are going. Our second topic that I think individual investors need to focus on, it revolves around the geopolitics, the trade talks between, in this case, US and China. We know that the president will be speaking to President Xi of China this Friday. And a lot of those talks, yes, will revolve around TikTok, but I think it's going to revolve around trade as a whole. Why is this so important? Well, TikTok is pretty big, a pretty big deal for many in the US, many in Canada, Europe, Asia. TikTok has become a very important social media platform, excuse me, for many. And we have some statistics to clearly show this. Our first chart actually shows the sentiment around TikTok right now. And you can see it's pretty much divided. Once upon a time, we had a lot of support for TikTok. That has come down. Many that opposed it were, in that, I guess, 22% rate area, and that has come up. And then the not sures seem to have stayed pretty stable. So a lot of people believe that TikTok should be available in the United States, and the president wants to make that happen. Our next chart shows TikTok users by region, which is quite interesting. You'll see the Asian Pacific area is by far the largest users of TikTok. Second is actually Europe, even more so than North America. But nonetheless, North America, US, is a big user of TikTok. Social media apps. What are the apps that people are using? Where does TikTok fall in that mix? Interesting enough, 3 out of the 4 largest social media apps are actually from Meta. Yeah, Facebook on top, just over 3 billion users on Facebook. YouTube, which is a Google or Alphabet product, 2.7. WhatsApp and Instagram follow. And then you have TikTok, just under 2 billion users, active users. So you can see that TikTok is a very large and important component with respect to social media, where people get their information. More and more individuals are going on the TikTok platform. But as I said, make no mistake about it, this is going to be a conversation between the US and China on trade. Maybe China says, okay, we'll allow you to buy TikTok from ByteDance, a Chinese company, and in return, what are you, the United States, going to give China? Maybe it's access to better chips, better performing chips, more powerful chips. Maybe it's something else that the US will have to give up or be told they must give up to get TikTok and the algorithm for TikTok into the US. So Friday, big day in my opinion, could be a market mover. It will be a conversation between the two heads, the head of China, Xi Jinping, and the President of the United States, Donald Trump. Definitely something individual investors need to focus on. Our third point and last point for our show today is the Mag 7 and just how much the Mag 7 makes up of the markets and why it is so important for individual investors to think about owning, especially looking for growth, a piece of the Mag 7. And our first chart shows how much the Mag 7 is worth right now. As of September 12th, 19.95 trillion. So just under $20 trillion. These are US dollars. And if we go to the next chart right away, you can see as a few days later, it went over the 20 trillion mark. And those are the market cap of each of the Mag 7. You can see NVIDIA is now by far the biggest company in the world, biggest company of the Mag 7. But Alphabet just recently joined the $3 trillion market or $3 trillion club. And to me, what I think and the takeaway for investors should be this. what is driving the bus right now is clearly technology. Clearly, the Mag 7 are at the forefront of most of what is happening right now, making up 2/3 of the US economy. They are the biggest companies. They have been some of the best performers. And if you want to add other names there into the big cap tech space, like Broadcom, which is now worth over $1 trillion, but other names like AMD, another chip maker, and many other data storage companies or other companies that have or do business and offer AI, artificial intelligence, and incorporate AI into their business. This is where individual investors, I believe, need to start focusing on if you haven't already. Now, you want to stay diversified, you want to have a nice, diverse portfolio. But in my opinion, if you're looking for growth, this is where your search should begin and end, because in my opinion, technology today is definitely driving the bus.